Universe says, I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today, beloved. Today the universe whispers a secret meant only for those bold enough to believe. I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today. Do not measure this promise by what your eyes see, nor by what the world says is possible, for the outer is but a shadow of the inner state you choose to dwell in. The wealth you seek is not coming, it is already here, waiting to be claimed in imagination. The moment you dare to feel the thrill of checking your account and seeing the digits aligned with your desire, you have already entered the reality where it exists. Money is not outside of you, it is the reflection of your consciousness. Therefore, when you walk, walk as the millionaire. When you speak, speak as the one already enriched. When you believe, believe as though the transfer is complete. For the unseen hand of the universe moves swiftly to those who persist in faith. Today is not about waiting, today is about receiving. Imagination is the only reality. Everything begins and ends in the theater of your imagination. For what you see in the outer world is only the echo of what you have entertained within. When you hear the universe declare, I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today. It is not a fanciful promise, but the announcement of a law that has already been set in motion. The law that your inner assumptions give birth to your outer experiences. Imagine for a moment that you open your bank app and your eyes fall upon the figure of $110,000,000 sitting effortlessly in your account. What do you feel? What changes within your chest, your breath, your posture? That sensation is the seed, the beginning of the manifestation. For the outer world has no choice but to mirror the world you consistently dwell in within. If imagination is the only reality, then your task is not to wait for the money to come, but to boldly step into the reality where it already exists. The world of facts, the evidence of senses, may shout lack, may shout impossibility, but the invisible act of your inner vision is greater than all appearances. The invisible governs the visible, the unseen governs the seen, and the inner vision precedes the outer harvest. Every fortune, every empire, every transformation was first a thought, an image, a belief, and then, through persistence, it clothed itself in matter. To reject imagination is to reject the very creative power that builds worlds. The mistake many make is to believe imagination is mere fantasy, a child's play, when in truth it is the workshop of the universe, the womb of all creation, the place where reality is scripted before it is lived. When you dare to imagine $110,000,000 as yours, not in the vague sense of hoping it might one day arrive, but in the definite assurance that it is already deposited and accounted for, you activate the law that compels the outer world to comply. You may say, but how can such a sum come to me? What channels, what means, what logic could explain it? And yet that very questioning is the doubt that cancels the power. The how is not yours to know. The how is the business of the universe, which rearranges all channels of supply to fulfill the state you occupy. Your role is singular, to accept and persist in the feeling of already having it. When you sit quietly and inwardly touch the reality of $110,000,000, when you hear the sound of your own voice telling a trusted friend, it's here, it happened, I am now abundantly supplied beyond measure. When you smell the scent of new leather in the luxury car you've purchased, when you taste the sweetness of fine dining and the freedom of choice, when you see yourself signing checks, funding dreams, blessing lives with ease, you have already created it. That inner act is the creative act, the outer is the shadow. Consider this. Have you not worried about things that never came to pass, and yet your body responded, your heart raced, your mind played out the scenario as if it were real? If fear can shape your emotions and affect your body through imagination, why doubt that faith-filled imagination can shape your finances and affect your reality? The difference lies not in the power, but in the direction in which you use it. Every man and woman is daily imagining, but few do so deliberately. The invitation today is to become deliberate, to seize control of the inner movie, and to place upon its screen the picture of $110,000,000 secured in your account. If imagination is the only reality, then this picture is already as real as the air you breathe, only awaiting the clothing of time to appear in your dimension. What you dare to assume with feeling hardens into fact, for the universe is compelled to give to you what you inwardly accept as true. The great tragedy is not that men and women aim too high and miss, but that they aim too low and hit. You may imagine an extra 1,000 or a modest gain, but why not step into the reality of extraordinary wealth? Why not accept the $110,000,000 that the universe has already announced for you? To imagine small is no less work than to imagine grandly. The creative act does not strain at numbers. It is only the limitation of your own acceptance that determines the harvest. So enlarge the vision, stretch the canvas of your imagination, and dare to see wealth in its fullness. As you move through your day, hold the inner picture more vividly than the outer facts. When lack confronts you, close your eyes and see abundance. When bills whisper fear, see the bank account filled. When doubts press in, reaffirm within yourself that imagination is the only reality, and therefore your wealth is as sure as the sunrise. Speak to yourself inwardly as one already in possession. Walk into rooms as one who knows money is no longer an issue. Carry yourself with the quiet dignity of one enriched by the unseen but certain flow of the universe. Every act of imagination is a seed, and the subconscious soil never rejects. It accepts without judgment. Plant carefully, water with persistence, and do not dig up the seed with doubt. Trust the law, for it has never failed. The money is not coming to you, it is coming through you as the reflection of the state you have already entered. Therefore, stop waiting for proof, be the proof. Stop looking to the world for confirmation. Confirm it within yourself. Stop seeking evidence. Become the evidence. The world will follow. $110,000,000 is not beyond you, for nothing is beyond imagination, and imagination is the source of all reality. If today you dare to step fully into that state, then the universe, by law, must honor it, for the unseen hand moves swiftly to solidify the images impressed upon it with conviction. Imagination is not daydream, it is destiny. Imagination is not fantasy, it is fact in motion, and so when the universe says, I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today, it is not a promise for the distant future, but a reminder of the eternal now in which all things are possible, all things are present, and all things are yours if you will only believe. Living from the end to live from the end is to step boldly into the reality of your fulfilled desire, and to walk, speak, and think as though the promise were already accomplished. For the universe has declared, I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today. Living from the end means refusing to acknowledge the absence of the money, and instead embracing the presence of it as the only truth that matters. It is the art of shifting your awareness from a state of wanting to a state of having, from a beggar's cry to a master's assurance, from someday to now. When you live from the end, you cease to look for signs and proof because you have already stepped into the fulfillment. The end is not a goal to be reached. It is a state to be occupied, a reality to be accepted, a consciousness to be worn as naturally as your skin. Imagine the sensation of wealth not as something to come, but as something you have already possessed for years. What would change? How would your mornings feel when you wake, stretch, and smile, knowing $110,000,000 rests securely in your bank? How would you answer your phone, respond to emails, speak to strangers, or plan your days? Living from the end means you embody that version of yourself now, and by embodying it, you make it inevitable in the world of form. Too many live in the state of waiting, of hoping, of longing, and by doing so they perpetuate the lack, for to wait is to confess you do not yet have. And to hope is to confess absence, but the universe responds not to begging or to anxious pleas. It responds only to the state you inwardly occupy. If you live from the state of the already rich, the outer world must bring into your experience the conditions that match it. Living from the end is the secret that transforms imagination into manifestation. Do not see yourself as one seeking wealth, but as one managing wealth. Do not dream of money arriving, but feel the reality of it already counted, already transferred, already enjoyed. Hear the inner conversations of gratitude and delight, not the restless prayers of lack. For example, imagine your banker calling you with a congratulatory tone. Your balance has been updated. The transfer is complete. $110,000,000 is now available. Do you hear his voice clearly in your mind? That sound, repeated and accepted as truth, is living from. And imagine your closest friend hugging you in excitement, exclaiming, "I knew it would happen for you. Look at what you've received." The warmth of that embrace is living from the end. Picture yourself traveling freely, signing documents with ease, funding causes that matter, blessing your family, and smiling at the sheer abundance of choices before you. That vision is not a dream, it is the end. Live in it now. When doubts arise, return to the end. When appearances of lack threaten, return to the end. When the outer world tempts you to measure by what is seen, close your eyes and re-enter the state where it is already done. Living from the end requires discipline of the imagination and constancy of faith, for senses will argue, it is not here, it cannot happen, it is too much. Yet the senses are always late. They report only the past, never the future you are creating. The end you occupy inwardly is the cause, the world of facts is the delayed effect. Therefore, when you live from the end, you walk ahead of the world, ahead of facts, ahead of appearances, and you compel them to catch up with the vision you have already embraced. Think of an actor who takes on a role. He does not half believe he is the character. He inhabits it completely until the audience is convinced. In the same way, you must inhabit the role of the wealthy, not as play acting but as truth, until the universe itself is convinced and delivers the performance in form. Living from the end is not pretending, it is becoming. It is not fantasy, it is faith. It is not self-deception, it is self-creation. When you assume the state of being a multimillionaire, even before the evidence arrives, you align with the frequency that calls it into being. Consider a radio tuned to a frequency. It does not wait for the station to arrive, it simply aligns and the music is there. In the same way, when you tune your inner being to the end of already having $110,000,000, the song of wealth begins to play in your life. You cannot tune to poverty and hear the melody of abundance. You must adjust the dial of consciousness and remain steadfast upon the station of fulfillment. This is living from the end. Some will scoff and say, but it is not yet real. Yet they misunderstand reality itself, for reality is not confined to what the senses record. Reality begins in the unseen, and the unseen is as real, if not more so, than what is visible. The tree was once a seed, the building once a blueprint, the empire once a thought. Reality existed before it clothed itself in form. So too with your $110,000,000. It exists now as real as the air you breathe, awaiting your acceptance. The only barrier is your unwillingness to dwell in it as already true. When you live from the end, you no longer pursue. You attract, you no longer chase. You embody, you no longer hope. You know. And in this knowing, the unseen hand of the universe rearranges people, places, events, and circumstances to deliver the outer picture of your inner conviction. Persist in the end, no matter how long it takes, for persistence is the secret ingredient. Do not check the soil to see if the seed is sprouted each day. Nurture it with trust, knowing that the harvest is sure. Each time you fall into doubt, return to the end. Each time fear whispers, return to the end. Each time logic argues, return to the end, for the end is where the beginning finds its fulfillment. Live so deeply in the end that the outer world has no choice but to surrender to your vision. Walk as the wealthy, think as the wealthy, give thanks as the wealthy, rest as the wealthy, and the $110,000,000 will no longer be a promise, it will be your possession. This is the power of living from the end, and when the universe says, I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today, It is an invitation to occupy the reality where it is already true, already done, already yours. The end is the beginning, and when you live from it, the world must follow. Inner speech creates outer wealth. Every word you whisper to yourself is a seed sown in the fertile ground of consciousness, and those seeds do not lie dormant. They blossom into the experiences of your life. The universe has declared, I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today, and whether you receive it depends not on chance or luck, but upon the inner conversation you hold with yourself moment by moment. Inner speech is the hidden architect of destiny. It is the silent dialogue that shapes the structure of your reality. You may not realize it, but from the moment you wake until the time you fall asleep, you are engaged in continuous self-talk, evaluating, anticipating, remembering, affirming, and this ceaseless dialogue is impressing itself upon the subconscious mind, which knows no difference between truth and falsehood, only between acceptance and rejection. If you persistently tell yourself, I don't know how money will come, it seems impossible, I'll never be free, then those words become chains that bind you to lack. But if you dare to shift your inner speech to words of certainty, I am already wealthy, $110,000,000 is mine, the transfer is complete, I walk in abundance, then those words become the script of the play your world must perform. Inner speech is not idle chatter, it is the power of creation clothed in thought. The world you see outside is nothing more than the echo of the words you have repeatedly spoken to yourself inside. If your outer life feels like poverty, struggle, and lack, listen closely to the inner commentary you have been rehearsing, for it reveals the root. Change the words within, and the world without must follow. Wealth is not summoned by desperate prayers, but by confident declarations spoken in the quiet chambers of your mind. When you lie down at night, rehearse the dialogue you would naturally have if $110,000,000 were already sitting in your account. Hear yourself telling a trusted friend, the deposit came through today, I knew it was already done, I am so grateful, my life is transformed. Hear their reply, feel the joy in their tone, the admiration in their words. That dialogue, though unseen by others, plants a reality that must grow into form. Speak inwardly as though it were already done, and the universe must comply, for it has no will but to mirror the state you persist in affirming. When the world of senses tells you it has not happened, refuse to argue with fact. Argue only with your inner speech. Facts belong to yesterday, creation belongs to today. Replace every I can't with I already have. Replace every I hope with I know. Replace every someday with now. Do not allow your mind to rehearse conversations of debt, of fear, of worry, for they are poison to the soil of your imagination. Instead, feed it with words of plenty, of joy, of certainty. For example, when a bill arrives, instead of sighing, I don't have enough, declare inwardly, this is easily covered, I am abundantly supplied. When an opportunity appears small, instead of saying, that won't be enough, declare, this is one of many channels through which my $110,000,000 flows to me. When someone doubts you, instead of repeating their words within, silence them with the stronger voice of your inner conviction. I am already in possession of limitless wealth. The world cannot resist the power of persistent inner speech. Over time, those words harden into facts, and what you once affirmed silently will be shouted aloud in your reality. Inner speech is the language of faith. It is the evidence of things not seen, the confidence in things already possessed. By your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned. Not the words you speak to others, but the words you whisper in the secret chambers of your heart. Therefore, guard your inner dialogue as you would guard your treasure, for it is treasure. If you would not give your password to thieves, why give your inner speech to fear? If you would not deposit counterfeit bills in your bank account, why deposit words of lack into your subconscious? Every phrase is currency, every statement a deposit. Speak only words that enrich, that affirm, that multiply. Tell yourself over and over, the universe has already sent me $110,000,000. It is mine, it is secure, it is complete. Repeat it until the words become natural, until you no longer feel like you are affirming but simply reporting the truth. That is when inner speech has done its work, when the repetition creates acceptance, and acceptance gives birth to manifestation. Many fail because they try once or twice and then declare, "It didn't work." But would you water a seed once and then abandon it? Would you speak to a child only once and expect him to learn a language? Consistency is the secret. Repeat until it saturates. Repeat until it becomes the new normal. Repeat until your subconscious takes it as fact. Then the outer must follow. Inner speech is the bridge between imagination and manifestation, the unseen architect that silently builds the mansion of your life. If you desire to be wealthy, speak wealth within. If you desire to be free, speak freedom within. If you desire $110,000,000, then every inner word must be in harmony with already possessing it. Say to yourself, "I am already living as the one who has received the universe's gift." Let yourself carry you into the emotional state of fulfillment. Let it rehearse gratitude, let it rehearse joy, let it rehearse generosity, for the world without is deaf to your outward words but powerless against your inward ones. Outer words may deceive, but inner words cannot. What you speak inside you become, and what you become the universe must reflect. Therefore let your inner speech be rich, let it be confident, let it be unshaken, for as you speak within, so shall it be without. The $110,000,000,000 is not waiting for you in some distant future. It is waiting for you to speak it alive now. Faith is acceptance without evidence. Faith is the unseen bridge between your present and your promise, the invisible hand that takes what exists only in imagination and clothes it in form. When the universe declares, "I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today," the question is not whether it is possible, but whether you have the faith to accept it without needing to see the evidence first. Faith is not blind, it is vision of the invisible. Faith is not weak hope, it is absolute acceptance of a reality not yet confirmed by the senses. To walk by faith is to refuse to wait for outward proof, for proof comes too late. It is only the echo of belief already accepted. Faith is to declare it is done, even while the bank account shows otherwise. Faith is to feel the security of $110,000,000 resting in your possession even when logic mocks and appearances deny it. The senses will say, "It is not here, it is impossible, it cannot be." But faith replies, "It is already mine, it is already finished, it is already accomplished." Faith has no concern for the how, for the how belongs to the universe. Your part is to accept the end, to live in the state of the wish fulfilled, to rest in the assurance that what you have assumed is already fact in the unseen. Faith is the courage to ignore appearances and trust the invisible law that never fails. Consider this: every great invention, every fortune, every achievement was once invisible. Before the building rose, the architect had only drawings. Before the song filled the air, the composer had only silence. Before the wealth appeared in the world, the dreamer had only imagination. Yet they moved as if it were real, they acted from belief, they trusted the unseen, and in time the world conformed. So it is with you. Faith does not wait for sight, it creates sight. Faith does not wait for money, it calls money into being. Faith is not a reaction to evidence, it is the cause of evidence. To have faith that $110,000,000 is already yours is to step into the state where you no longer ask or hope, but know. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the quiet conviction that what you accept inwardly must appear outwardly, regardless of how impossible it seems. Without faith, imagination collapses under doubt. Without faith, inner speech is cancelled by fear. Without faith, persistence becomes weary. But with faith, all things are possible, for faith is the very foundation upon which manifestation stands. To cultivate faith, you must first detach from the tyranny of the senses. Stop measuring reality by what you can see, hear, and touch, for these are always delayed reflections. If you look only at your current bank balance, you will chain yourself to the past. If you judge your future by your present circumstances, you will remain stuck in limitation. But if you lift your eyes inwardly and see the invisible riches of $110,000,000 already deposited, already available, already flowing through your life, then your faith becomes the magnet that pulls it into view. Faith is not pretending. It is choosing to live by a higher reality than appearances. Faith is not self-deception. It is self-creation. Faith is not fantasy. It is substance. Imagine yourself walking into the bank and hearing the clerk say, "Your balance shows $110,000,000,000." Faith is the ability to feel that seen as true without needing to check. Imagine yourself celebrating with loved ones, toasting to the new life of freedom. Faith is the ability to enter that feeling now, not later. Imagine yourself signing documents for investments, charities, and businesses. Faith is the ability to rest in the assurance that these actions are inevitable because the wealth is already yours. The world may call it delusion, but faith knows it is destiny. Faith is not shaken by time, for time is only the distance between seed and harvest. The farmer plants his seed and waters it, never doubting it will grow, though for days or weeks there is no evidence. Why? Because he knows the law of growth is sure. So too with faith. You plant the seed of assumption, water it with persistence, and rest in certainty that the harvest must appear. To doubt is to dig up the seed and delay the harvest. To waver is to poison the soil. To fear is to uproot the crop. But to have faith is to nurture the seed with confidence until the fruit appears. Faith is patient because it knows the law cannot fail. Faith is bold because it knows appearances are powerless. Faith is unshakable because it knows the unseen governs the seen. When you accept $110,000,000,000 as already yours in faith, you align with the power that creates worlds. Do not ask, when will it happen? That question reveals doubt. Instead declare, it has already happened, and live in the peace of that acceptance. Do not say, how can it come? That question confesses fear. Instead affirm, it comes by perfect means in perfect time, through channels I need not control. Do not wonder, what if it fails? That thought reveals unbelief. Instead affirm, the law cannot fail, and therefore my $110,000,000,000 is certain. Faith is not passive, it is active acceptance. Faith is not weak, it is the strongest force in existence. Faith is not waiting, it is receiving, and the one who truly accepts in faith will walk, speak, and think differently. You will no longer discuss lack, but abundance. You will no longer feel anxious, but secure. You will no longer pray as a beggar, but as a receiver giving thanks. This inner shift is the evidence that faith has taken root. When the universe says, I will be sending $110,000,000,000 in cash to your bank account today, the mind without faith laughs and scoffs, but the heart of faith says, it is already done, and begins to celebrate. Which will you choose, the evidence of the senses or the evidence of faith? Faith asks only that you believe without seeing, and in return, it allows you to see what you have believed. For faith is the unseen cause of the visible world, and when you accept in faith, the universe must deliver in form. Persistence makes it inevitable. The universe has already whispered its decree. I will be sending $110,000,000,000 in cash to your bank account today. Yet between the inner acceptance and the outer appearance lies the test of persistence. For persistence is the golden key that makes manifestation inevitable. To persist is to hold the inner picture of your fulfilled desire so steadily, so faithfully, so consistently, that no outward contradiction can shake it. Persistence is the refusal to let the senses dictate your truth. It is the stubborn insistence that what you have seen inwardly must, by law, become visible outwardly. Many begin the journey of imagination and faith with excitement, but they falter when appearances deny them. They imagine once or twice, then look to the world for evidence, and seeing none, they declare, it doesn't work. But manifestation is not for the impatient. It is for those who persist until the unseen becomes seen. Persistence is not about straining. It is about returning again and again to the state of the wish fulfilled until it becomes your natural dwelling place. It is like a river that carves through stone, not by force, but by steady, unyielding flow. Each time you assume the feeling of already having $110,000,000, you are deepening the groove of belief in your subconscious. Each time you rehearse the inner speech of wealth, you are planting the roots deeper. Each time you close your eyes to appearances and open them to imagination, you are watering the seed. Persistence guarantees that, no matter how long the soil seems barren, the harvest must come. The only failure is to abandon the state before it matures. Persistence is the art of ignoring the clock. Do not ask, how many days will it take? For that question reveals impatience. The seed knows its season, the harvest knows its hour. Your task is only to persist in the conviction that it is already done. If the world denies it, persist. If the bank account shows lack, persist. If logic argues, persist. If fear whispers, persist. For persistence is the proof of faith, and faith always produces its fruit. Consider how habits are formed. A thought repeated becomes a belief sustained becomes a state maintained becomes reality. The difference between one who manifests $110,000,000 and one who does not is not the greatness of imagination, for all imagine, but the persistence with which they hold to it. The one who persists in imagining wealth, regardless of contradictions, must inevitably experience it, while the one who allows the world to dictate their imagination must remain bound to lack. Persistence means that you live so constantly in the end that the outer world has no choice but to bend to it. Think of an actor who rehearses a role daily until it becomes second nature. In the beginning it feels unnatural, forced, uncertain. But through repetition, the lines become his own words, the gestures his own body, the emotions his own reality. In the same way, persist in assuming the role of the wealthy until it no longer feels like imagination, but like truth. Persist until you no longer need to remind yourself, but automatically walk, think, and feel as one already in possession of $110,000,000. This persistence dissolves doubt, silences fear, and compels manifestation. Do not be discouraged by setbacks, for they are illusions. Do not be swayed by delays, for they are lies. The truth is this: every assumption persisted in must harden into fact. It is a law as sure as gravity, and persistence is the force that ensures it. When you feel tempted to abandon your vision, remember that every great breakthrough happens just beyond the point where most give up. Hold on longer than the doubt. Hold on firmer than the fear. Hold on deeper than the senses. For the universe cannot resist persistence. It must yield. Imagine your life as though you already live in the reality of $110,000,000 and refuse to step out of that state. When you wake, persist. When you walk, persist. When you speak, persist. When you lie down at night, persist. Let the assumption of wealth be the background of every moment, the foundation of every thought, the silent undercurrent of every word. You will find that persistence is not hard work, it is devotion. It is the choice to return again and again to the inner truth, no matter how many times the outer denies it. Persistence is the art of spiritual stubbornness, the refusal to accept anything less than what you have claimed. If imagination is the seed and faith is the soil, then persistence is the sunlight that ensures growth. Without persistence, the seed withers. With persistence, the harvest is inevitable. Therefore, make persistence your practice. Each day, rehearse the scene of wealth. Each night, fall asleep in the feeling of abundance. Each challenge, answer with the silent declaration, "It is already mine." And in time, the $110,000,000 will no longer be an inner vision, but an outer fact. Persistence guarantees it, for persistence is the law in action. The universe has already promised, "I will be sending $110,000,000 in cash to your bank account today." And your persistence is the magnet that draws it from the unseen into the seen. Persist, and it must come. Persist, and it cannot fail. Persist, and the inevitable will be revealed as your reality.